Yes, sir.
I think we looked at, okay, I know what we need to do now. We're going to look at uh, the the Devlin debates, which I know you've all read, was in that so-called Jude notes, and we will look at how Nigerian law treats morals and what have you. Yeah, good. Okay, because I don't have
Yes, sir.
lots of time. It's quite difficult balancing this. Uh, okay. Okay, let me quickly talk about um, victimless crimes before I go into the all the Devlin debates and whatever. Are you aware of the concept of victimless crimes? Are you aware of victimless crimes?
No, sir.
Okay. So I think I remember talking though, we spoke about it, but you may not have averted your mind to it. We spoke about things like prostitution, what else? Drug abuse, stuff like that. So when you're looking at jurisprudence, there are some crimes that, that touch on issues of liberty, individual liberty, and the fact that maybe you say they're not harming any particular person. So if someone is taking drugs, for instance, someone just wants to sit down in a room, they want to take marijuana, get high, whatever, I mean, singing reggae songs, they're not banging on your door or trying to kick your door down. They're not trying to fight anybody. They're more sleepy than aggressive. Um, should the law should the law intervene or get involved with this matter? Should it be a matter of law? Should the law penalize this type of people who are doing things which we don't agree with, but they are basically effectively harming just themselves? Is this a matter that the law should get engaged in, or should the law just let people be? What do you think? Should the law just let people be? I know it's early in the morning, but it's not that early. That is much earlier for me. Hmm? Akinlabi Simileoluwa Ayomide, are you in class?
Come on, sir.
Good morning. So, what do you say?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't think the law should let people be because that's what encourages other vices like stealing, and there'll just be
How does how
corruption
does
in the
how does
society.
okay? So if you leave people alone to smoke marijuana or do their own individual life without disturbing another person, they will now become more emboldened and become criminals and kill everybody. That's your argument.
Yes.
Okay. Oh. Does anyone agree with that or disagree? Precious Okudo, are you in class? You know how to type your name, but are you in class? Precious, Precious, no. Class rep.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Yes, sir.
Sorry. We saying yes, sir. Hello. Is Precious not in class? Okay, let's move on. I was talking about victimless crimes. People want to gamble, for instance. What do we do? So what basically we are finding in this kind of debates is a clash of philosophies to that try to say what's the limit of state power? Why at what stage should the state be involved in when we're talking about victimless crimes? If you look at John Stuart Mill on liberty and also H.L.A. Hart, they argue that the only justifiable reason for the states to interfere with an individual's liberty is to prevent harm to others. So these two jurists are talking about John Stuart Mill and HLA had, say that states should not interfere with people unless they want to prevent harm to others. Okay, so things like actions that are purely self impacting on the self, on the individual himself or herself, and does not and involves consenting adults in a private space are really not the law's business. So that's why the um, where government criminalizes acts such as consensual sexual acts between adults, drug abuse, let me say, not say drug abuse, but abuse is actually saying it's the wrong thing. Drug use or gambling is an overreach of government power and infringes upon our personal and individual autonomy. Okay. So the view on victimless crimes that these proponents argue that we should decriminalize these acts, that the state has enough work to do, that why is it interfering in things that really it has no business in? And it's saying that the resources of the justice system that is so limited should be focused on offenses with clear victims and harm to non-consenting adults. Yeah. And then I would go I would go back to the hard Devlin debate, but there's issue of legal moralism, where when Lord Devlin, a key figure in the 20th century in the hard Devlin debate, very famous, I know you've read about it, argued against Mills and Hart's positions. And he talked about how law can be used to enforce society's shared morality. And the shared morality is basically important and is essential to cohesion and the existence of a country or of a state, of a society. We have to engage in a shared morality. Just as government has to protect its physical borders, it also has to protect its moral fabric. And any behavior that will cause intolerance, indignation, and disgust among right-thinking members of society should or can be criminalized, even if it is private and consensual. So this kind of view will reject victimless crimes because the concept of victimless doesn't exist. The victim itself is society as a whole, which will suffer harm when foundational moral norms are broken or it disintegrates. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Then another view of looking at this is from legal paternalism. And that view is basically justifying state intervention to protect individuals from harming themselves, even against their will. Now, the legal paternalism, when you say paternalism, as if the state knows better. The state knows better than the individual in certain circumstances and has a duty to save those individuals from themselves and from their own choices. For instance, we have laws saying that we have to wear your seat belt when you're driving a car. So it's legal paternalism. We're protecting you from what? Yourself. When you drive a motorbike, we say put on your helmet. We are protecting you against yourself. Uh, Taking illegal drugs. These drugs are made illegal because even though you are sitting in a room getting high by yourself, it impacts on society. Okay, that's why we prohibit drugs. So activities like the view there is that of legal paternalism is that things like addiction or even extreme gambling can lead to serious self-harm, health problems, financial ruin, and the state has the right to prevent this. I don't know what you think. If you go around the country, people are playing Baba Jebu and Bet Nigeria everywhere, and there are a lot of social problems that are occurring. I don't know whether you are aware of the social impact of gambling on the uh, Nigerian people, especially poor people. Are you aware of it? Any volunteer? Nobody's aware of it. Miss uh, Ura Olawaye, Olawaye.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Are you aware of the problems as I just described it?
Is it about the victimless crimes?
What else am I talking about? I'm
Um,
talking about gambling, and I said, are you aware of the dangers to society from gambling? That gambling can be a problem. Are you aware of what happens in poor areas of cities in Nigeria where people spend all their money on Bet Nigeria and Baba Jebu? Are you aware of the problems, the social problem it causes?
Aside that, it could be an addiction. I don't think I'm aware of one.
Can you repeat what you said? I didn't get what you said.
I said that it could become an addiction and maybe lead people to steal and smoking.
Exactly that, but that's what's happening though. There are people stealing people from. I saw a thing where someone stole 5 million or 10 million and bet the whole lot, thinking that if he triples the money, he just return the money that he stole. Of course, he didn't win, and there is. So that's the problem. What about issues about when you're talking about um, the reality of what we talk about victimless crimes? There's an analysis. Modern jurisprudence has a problem because sometimes when you're applying some of these principles in practice, it can become an issue. Now, when you say what's harm to society, how do you define harm? Harm can be very complex. When we talk about physical harm, someone slaps you, someone punches you, that's very clear. There's no issue about that. But some argue that victimless crimes cause indirect harm. So you cannot say because the harm is not direct and physical and clear that there's no harm. So addiction, as you said, leads to theft. Gambling addiction can lead to theft. It can lead to abandonment of families as um, as the breadwinner has thrown away the entire monthly wage, and then the family are in hunger. So it can lead to social disruption. It can also lead to um, funding of organized crime through black market activities, anything that is not clear. So these are social harms, though not as direct as someone assaulting the other person. But they're no less important. They're no less impactful. That's the word I'm looking for on society. So when you look at the word victimless, what do you mean by victimless? Some people are saying there's no such thing as the word victimless crime, that even when the act is consensual, there are also social repercussions or exploitation involved. So when you're talking about prostitution, that they have a right to sell off their bodies if they so wish, what about the fact that there have been human trafficking is involved? What about the fact that coercion, that people are being forced into prostitution? Maybe the family owes debts, financial, they owe money to somebody, and they say, "Oh, I'll come and pick up your daughter, or I'll come and pick up your son." Force them into bondage, force them into free labor, force them into destroying their lives. Yeah. So if you also look at the concepts when we're talking about um, erosion of civil liberties, those who criticize so-called victimless crime pointed that enforcing them requires intrusion of police powers and surveillance, which also erode civil liberties for innocent people. So that's the counter argument that, if you want to um, impose laws against crimes that have no real victims, then you are allowing the police to have more powers than they should have, more CCTV everywhere, police spending time to be chasing after, uh, uh, I wouldn't want to call Yahoo boys as uh, victimless crimes. Or can you look at the Yahoo boy phenomena and say, oh, the Yahoo boy, not ideal, but it's essentially a victimless crime. Ofyong, Nako Ofyong. What do you say to that? That person is not in class. Okay. Allow mistura. Allow mistura. Allow mistura. Are you in class? Barakan Olusonia. Are you in
So I'm
class?
in class, sir.
Who is speaking?
Allow me to rest, sir.
Okay. So what's your answer to the question?
Hello, sir. Nkano Young is in class. I was trying to on my mic.
That's very low. Let me start with Miss Tura since you didn't pick your mic. Go on, Miss Tura.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I didn't really get the
You didn't
question,
get
sir.
it because you were not listening in class. I'm tired of you guys.
So I was listening, but the network was kind of breaking up.
Everybody's always network when they ask you a question. But if they didn't ask you the question, you will not be complaining about network. Ofyong, what's the answer to the question?
Yes, sir. You asked if Yahoo boys are basically a victimless class, victimless
Exactly.
crime in society.
Exactly.
So it's a bit dicey in my own view because many a times the victims are not members of our own society.
Okay.
The victims are foreigners. So um can they come and chase after the people that are defrauding them inside our own country? So that kind of makes it victimless. But also in the same vein, some people are being defrauded by these same Yahoo boys within the country.
Okay. So if
So
somebody say dollar Yahoo boy that only defrauds people in foreign currency,
it's
it's
not victimless. There's still a victim. The issue
uh-huh.
becomes an issue of jurisdiction.
Don't forget about jurisdiction. Are we not talking about the course of law, morality, religion? That's the topic we are on. So that's the
Yes.
perspective from which you want to look at it. So again, I go back to you. Is are Yahoo boys essentially a victimless crime?
So I'll say no, Sha. That's the honest truth. No, there's a
Why?
victim somewhere that is being scammed.
Exactly. Do you know how many victims have committed suicide after being financially ruined? People have committed suicide. The Nigerian passport is in the toilet because of them. Everywhere you go, when you travel and people are treating you with suspicion, treating you with discourtesy, it's because of these people. So there is a harm to our society. There's a harm to the economy. The investors that don't come and the jobs we don't have is directly linked to somebody who stole essentially very small amounts of money compared to if investment had come and we worked, we opened the factory, we worked there, we made money for ourselves and took care of our families. Okay, are we good?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
In the vein or in the light of what you have just said, does that mean that embezzlement of public funds is also a victim, it's also a crime with victims or a victimless crime? Which one?
What do you mean embezzlement or crime? If you embezzle money, of course, it's not victimless. Don't you know that
Mm,
it's not the road that you're supposed to go on that there's no road and you kill yourself on the pothole kills you? Is it not the hospital you get to and there's no medicine in the hospital because the director of medical services has stolen all the drugs and the person dies from a very minor treatable. Of course, there's not victimless. It's completely there's in fact I can't think of more victim prone and immoral. There's no religion that says that tolerates corruption. No religion, no moral, no society that well, society and that comes into morality and society. We all agree in Nigeria that stealing is wrong. You don't want someone to come to your house and loot your house. Yet we're happy to go to senators and governors' party to go and spend our own funds looted and used to oppress us to go and beg for change from them. How do you reconcile those things? Aisha
sir,
Wonuga, very quick, yeah, very quickly, because I want Aisha Wonuga to say something. Go ahead.
and is giving cognitive dissonance. We don't really know what we are against and what we stand for. That's how it is.
So does that
Because
mean you are an immoral race of people? you are immoral people. That's your argument.
As Nigerians,
Yes.
yes, yes, very moral, very, very moral.
Okay. Aisha Wonuga, what's your view? Aisha Wonuga. She doesn't exist. Aisha Awonuga. Does anybody want to help her? Babu? No volunteers. Nobody's interested.
Personally, sir, on this issue, I think my view would be from the standpoint that most people, not just even Nigerians, like human beings in general, are mostly after what they stand to gain from things. So when you see issues, when you see issues of people like stealing as a societal is a societal vice which everybody recognizes. But in instances where they are not standing firmly against these people, it's because in one way or the other, they are benefiting from such vice that's been committed by the government. So that's just how I put
So
it,
those
sir.
who are in government are committing crimes, and we are complicit by tolerating it because we also want to wait for our own turn to go to the same government and do the same.
Exactly. There's this mentality of letting the national cake reach everyone. So I think majority of Nigerians have that
Can
shared view
can
of
can
wanting to
can the
benefit.
national cake reach everyone? In fact,
Unfortunately, it can't, but nobody is
it
thinking
cannot.
past
It will
that.
never reach everyone. It will not even reach. It
Exactly.
will not even reach a reasonable proportion of society. Less than 1% will steal it, and less than 1% will benefit from it. So you are all gambling on the chance that you two will get your chance to
You'll be
wreck.
part of the 1%.
Okay, you are still hoping that you'll be one of those 1%.
No, no, I'm just saying that people with that mentality,
Okay,
that's what
not
they are
you.
hoping on. Not me, sir.
Okay, to God be the glory. Yes, I'm happy.
Good morning, sir. Aisha, I
Okay,
want to
I
get
think
here. Sorry,
that's
I had issues on muting my mic.
okay. So, okay, I blame Glue or your service provider. So, what's your view, very quickly, so we can move on? Because I already
Okay,
moved
so
on.
I think embezzlement is a crime with victims, obviously, the same way fraud is. There's no victimless crime when it comes to taking things that belongs to the public because somebody loses, no matter how little, somebody's affected by your own like selfish enrichment. So obviously they are victims.
Mm, okay, okay. I think I believe that I spoke. Did I not speak about Kant in the previous class? Did I not speak about Kant, Immanuel Kant?
Sir, you mentioned his view on law and morality
Okay,
that is linked with rationality and duty.
but did I talk about? Uh, okay, let me go back to that debate because I know you need to know about it, and I think, as I said, I want to finish that topic today. But I want you to know what you are doing. I don't want uh, people to be because if you read ahead, I don't know about you though. I like this topic, but maybe it's just me. Do you struggle to understand this topic on law, morality, and religion? Are you struggling with it, or do you think it's relatively straightforward when we discuss it like we are? What do you think? Any volunteer can speak.
I do agree with you that it's very straightforward when we discuss it, sir.
Okay, right. So hopefully we'll see an exam question on it, but I don't
Good
know yet.
morning, sir.
Good morning, yes.
Please, I just wanted to ask, since you
Mhm.
asked if maybe it's going to be difficult for us, someone has actually said that it's straightforward, but from your own perspective, what do you think, or what would you have expected would have been difficult for us in case we didn't catch it?
There's nothing difficult about it. There's nothing difficult about any course. if you only will sit down and break it down to pieces, which is what I'm doing and I've done. So if you break it down to pieces, I expect people to understand it. And it's very clear. We all have some kind of moral standpoint, whether we like it or not. You may agree with that prostitutes should not be harassed, but what about the customer of the prostitute? Yeah? Should the law enforce the laws against prostitution against the lady or the man or whatever hanging on the street corner, but doesn't do anything to the pimp who controls them, doesn't do anything to the men who patronize them? Is that a fair way for law to operate? Or should we do it in a way as other societies have done, in which the laws focus on the pimp, the law focuses on the customers? What do you think? Should we do it? Should we look at it from that perspective?
Good
Hmm?
morning,
Yeah.
Yes, good morning. Who is trying to speak?
Bumi.
Go ahead, Bumi.
So I think that the law should address like all the people, all the perpetrators, both the prostitutes, both the people that are patronizing her, as well as the pimps. Because from the aspect of the men that are patronizing her, if there is no market per se, like there's nothing for her to sell, like she would not, the prostitute will not be selling her body if nobody's patronizing her. The reason why prostitutes are doing it is because they know that they have a market and it is a maybe constant form of money. Then
Okay.
also, I think the pimps as well should also be punished because they are the facilitators. If the
Yeah.
pimps are not available, the work cannot go on smoothly. And then as well, the prostitutes are also the main committers of the crime. So I feel like all of them should be addressed because if
What
anybody,
what if the prostitute is a trafficked young girl from her village in Akwa Ibom? As sometimes happen. I'm sorry to mention Akwa Ibom, but it happens from many states as well. So I think we see a lot of our people from east, from west, in Ghana, where they have been trafficked, 16-year-old girls. So are you saying that this 16-year-old girl who is in a club in Ghana, who had been trafficked by a so-called auntie or a neighbor, that to come and do nanny work, or to come and do waitressing, or to come and do shop girl, and now being forced and raped and forced into prostitution, that they're not victims, that they should be punished? You really believe that?
no, I think in that specific scenario, what that sort of girl needs is maybe rehabilitation and then to be
Uh,
brought back into the society. But there are girls that do it voluntarily because
ah,
they see it as a yes, there are people that do it because they see it as a form of income, not because they were forced or anything. So I feel like for people like that, then there should be punishment, obviously. But for people that do it because of the circumstances they were in, maybe they were really young, they didn't even know what they were getting themselves into, and they've been forced. Then yes, those kind of girls should have rehab. That's what I think. So
okay, whatever. You see, you come into also moral relativism the more you go into these things, because that's why then I say, why is the law investigating and putting itself into all these things? Why not just protect the women and punish the ones creating the market? If there are cases where people have lost their parents, and their own relatives fling them out of their parents' houses to sell it off, and they leave them homeless and destitute. And let's say the oldest is I don't know, 15-year-old, 20-year-old girl, whatever, no job. She was in university. How is she going to take care of herself and siblings? And maybe she, she uh, she's been pushed or forced into this kind of lifestyle in order to provide for the others. Would you be more sympathetic then to her? Would you not say that she should not be punished by being flung in jail? If she goes to jail, how the children, the other ones that was through the money of prostitution, they are going to school? So you see, these things are all very difficult social questions, and there are really no easy answers to all of this. Okay, that's why when we look at that, um, going back to that, uh, the morals debate about the conservative view or legal moralism of Lord Devlin, that you have to say, when Lord Devlin is saying we have a shared morality, and the morality is the cement of society, and we need that morality for our existence, and we should use the law and order and government to preserve our moral code. That's the view. The moral code should be preserved, and the state can use the law to protect its morality. Some may agree, some may not agree, because in his view, those who deviate from community's morality can lead to its disintegration. So, but he is saying that, so at what level can we enter this issue of enforcement? We should enter the enforcement when an immoral act arouses feelings of intolerance, in quotes, intolerance, indignation, and disgust among the reasonable man. You know, you've heard of in criminal law, talk about the reasonable man, the man or woman, the Clapham omnibus, the reasonable man. But is there really a reasonable man? Do we always all like experience intolerance, indignation, and disgust? You know, these things are very difficult to measure because one person's level of tolerance could be very, very different from another. But he's saying the reasonable man, so the average man. Okay, so that's the kind of view. So basically, Devlin focused on the positive morality. That's the morality that's accepted and shared by the social groups, suggesting that uh, popular morality can be the basis for criminal law. Now, H.L.A. has a more liberal view and is a legal positivist, as you all know. It very strongly disagrees with Devlin's view that law has nothing to do with morality. Using the law to enforce morality is unnecessary and even wrong in principle. You should not use the law to enforce morality. So he's defending John Stuart Mill's harm principle, which says that the only justifiable reason to exercise power over a member of a civilized community against their will is to prevent harm to others. So I think I'm repeating it so that you can let it sink in. I've spoken about this only a few minutes ago, and I'm repeating it again. John Stuart Hill's harm principle. The only justifiable reason to exercise power over a member of a civilized community against their will is to prevent harm to others. So if there's no harm to others, you should leave them alone. So the critique of Devlin, Hart is arguing that Devlin's theory is based on untested utilitarianism and emotion rather than reason. It's saying that, look, it says when you're talking about disgust, intolerance, ignorant or people that with prejudice can have those feelings of disgust and intolerance. So how do you start measuring that? Look at the ways that we've had laws against witchcraft or racial discrimination. And that makes a good point. In Nigeria, for instance, do we have laws against witchcraft? Akora Zavin. Akora Zavin. Are you in class? Akora. No, no such person exists. Are you in class, Akora?
Yes, right.
Yeah. Do we have laws
Good morning,
against
sir. Can you
witchcraft?
hear me?
I can hear you, ma. Do we have laws against witchcraft?
Sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you, ma.
Okay. There's no law that I'm aware of that's against witchcraft.
So that's perfectly acceptable. Should there be laws against witchcraft?
Yes, I believe there should be laws against witchcraft.
Okay.
But
How would you design such laws? How do you prove it in court? Is it
I believe
on the
I
are you
believe
going to do
that
balance of probabilities or beyond reasonable doubt? How are you going to I
I
had a dream. I saw my neighbor trying to fight me. How do you tender that evidence in court? How do you
that's the
prove it?
problem. I feel like that's probably why there's no law against it. But like witchcraft is used for a lot of things, like how Yahoo boys sometimes use witchcraft to get people to like
How
there's
do
no
you
specific law against witchcraft, but there are ways that witchcraft is used that's
in a modern
criminalized.
society, that's what you believe. But in a modern society, how would you be able to prove that in a court of law? That's the bottom line, isn't it? It's not about how we feel disgust about what they are doing and how we are afraid of them or whatever. It's can you prove it?
No, I don't think it's
And if
possible
you,
to prove.
and if you cannot prove it, would you like a situation where we had I don't know, a witchfinder general, a state institution as part of the police, a witchfinder general that would come to court and use their magical powers to spot the witch or wizard or whatever we're talking about? Would you would you buy into that?
No, I would not.
Why
I,
won't you
I
buy
don't
into
think
that?
it's possible to actually criminalize it.
Uh-huh. So that's the problem. Now, I think there was a state in the East that did a law recently, a state law that was against they used an Igbo word for it. I don't know, it's money ritual and or doing money rituals. And I could immediately see where they would struggle to do proof. But at the same time, I think that if something is a menace to society and it's a problem in society, society to do its best to discourage it. Whether it's by legislation, that's where I have my doubts. That's where I have my doubts. Okay. Yeah. So he's saying that people can have, people, you can see a Chinese person and have disgust towards them or be intolerant towards them, or a white person and be intolerant towards them. Racial discrimination is based on prejudice, on emotion. Doesn't mean it's rational. So Hart is trying to distinguish between positive morality, which is it could be rational, and critical morality. That's the general moral principles that can be used to critique social institutions. It says the law should be subject to constant moral scrutiny, but moral disapproval alone is not enough for legal prohibition. Okay? So it's not saying morals don't exist, but it's saying that it should not uh, just because I disapprove of your lifestyle. Like for instance, some people feel that single mothers are morally bankrupt. But is that the truth? Is that correct? Do you know their story? And then who are you to suggest that the law should tackle this matter? Should deprive them of their children because they're not fit and proper to have children? It's their children. Is this the role of the law? Should the law, should the role of law in enforcement of law would then be an issue? So already the law plays a critical, although mostly informal role in enforcement and effectiveness of law. So if you're talking about legitimacy and obedience, when a law is in line with the shared moral conviction of the community, it's more likely to be obeyed. Is that not so? They're likely to obey it voluntarily. Yeah. But when the laws are significantly against public morality, enforcement becomes very difficult. It becomes costly. It's not, the law is ignored. I give the example of the laws against bigamy. Nigerians are not interested, or Nigerian men anyway, maybe Nigerian women are interested, but Nigerian men who are in power are not interested in enforcing any laws against bigamy. Because if you even enforce laws against bigamy, you have to go and pick up all the judges, some of your people in the judiciary, in the executive, in the legislature, they'll be picked up. And because it has no social stigma involved, it's just ignored. It was a law of a colonial government, and they have no interest in it. What about judicial interpretation? So even where you have a legal system where law and morals or legal positivism is recognized, judges sometimes refer in some ways to what that can be viewed as moral principles, such as the concept of justice, fairness, reasonableness, when interpreting an ambiguous law or exercising discretion when a case is very hard. Now, people like Ronald Dworkin have argued that moral judgments are integral to legal reasoning and interpretation because law is part of a narrative that must have some kind of coherence with moral principles. That's according to Dworkin. Now, if you look at it from the perspective of um, inspiration for lawmaking. Law, you can find that you may see that morality is a primary source of law in its way because many laws, I think we've discussed all this before, so you can see I'm reinforcing and going back and forth on the same points. Laws against murder, laws against assault, theft, they're basically codifications of fundamental moral values and fundamental moral principles. So morality provides what ought to be done, and then the legal is saying what is done through legal processes. Okay. So although the legal enforcement of private morals remains contested, that's laws against say homosexuality and so for private morals, morality is essential for legitimacy, interpretation, and practical enforcement of the law. There are people who believe in sadomasochism where they pay people to beat them up. So if you pay someone to flog you and they tear your back up and you're bleeding, and you go to the hospital for for treatment, and they say, what happened to you? You now say, John Smith beat me, and the police go and pick up John Smith. Does John Smith have a defense? Does John Smith have a defense? Hmm? Yanolua, does John Smith have a defense? Adeboye, member of group 28, whatever that means. Yanolu, are you in this class? Is that Yanolu?
Yes, I'm in this class. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Is there a defense?
I don't think John Smith has a defense.
Eh, someone paid you to beat them. They're not going to complain to the police that you beat them. Somebody has some kind of crazy fetish and they get off with somebody beating them. And the person, they're paid, you pay John Smith to beat you. John Smith beats you and you go to the police. Should John Smith now be jailed for that beating?
I don't
No,
think
sir.
so.
I mean, these are private individuals agreeing to a private act. You don't think so? Are there no laws against assault?
Sir,
Hmm?
maybe one can say the defense of consent, because you pay the person to beat you. You basically consented to the act, I think.
I mean, when you talk about crime, is there no actus reus and mens rea? Have you forgotten your
Yes.
criminal law? So, if you were a judge, would you now jail John Smith?
No, because actually he didn't have the intention of injuring him. Maybe he wanted to beat him for a particular spiritual purpose.
I don't know about that spiritual purpose. Okay, fair enough. Only in Nigeria. Okay, cool. All right. Now, so that interconnection and that interrelationship between law and morality is an ongoing central debate. The matter will never finish. I told you in the past about the schools of thought, the people of natural law theory, and the views of the legal positivists. Everybody has their own um, way of their own approach to looking at this problem. I talked about how natural law is saying that law necessarily derives from moral principles, and an unjust law is not even a true law at all. Thomas Aquinas says that human law must align with fundamental natural law, the principles of doing good and avoiding evil. Lon Fuller proposed law has an inner morality or a set of procedural requirements like clarity, consistency, prospectivity, and all genuine legal systems must meet to function, uh, must meet these standards. John Finnis identifies a set of basic goods, e.g., life, knowledge, play, practical reasonableness, and so forth, that are universally valuable. And the purpose of law is to institutionalize these moral principles for the common good. I also mentioned legal positive is the school that contends that the validity of law depends on the source and the manner of its creation, e.g., enactment by a legislature, not by moral content. John Austin, law is the command of a sovereign backed by sanctions. I said it. H.L.A. Hart, another positive is law and morality are distinct legal systems often contain minimum content of natural law necessary for survival. However, law does not cease to be law simply because it is immoral, though there may be moral duty to obey. Interpretivism by Ronald Dworkin had challenged the positivists by arguing that law is not merely a set of rules, it also includes principles of justice and fairness, and judges must interpret law in a way consistent with the moral structure and integrity of the entire legal system. So we're now going to do some real examples. Some of the examples that we could have mentioned. What about the case of the German woman who informed on her husband for criticizing Hitler, which was a crime under Nazi law? After the war, the court convicted the wife, describing the Nazi laws as contrary to sound conscience and sense of justice of all decent human beings. The court convicted the wife, describing the Nazi laws as contrary to this sound conscience and sense of justice of all decent human beings. Do you agree with that position? Do you agree with that? Jasmine Shem, do you agree with that position? I can't hear you.
Sorry, so my network's lagging. Can you please repeat what you said?
Yeah, go on. Jasmine,
Sir, can you hear me? Can you
I
please
can
repeat
hear
what you
you,
said? My
ma'am.
network is lagging. Yes, sir. Thank you.
How do you know your network is bad? I can hear you. Continue.
I didn't hear what you said, is what I said, sir, please.
I repeated it more than 3 times. Jasmine, you're not listening. I told you I'm a mind reader. Okay, I'll go back again. I said I was making allusion to what the court said in a case after, as part of the Hartfuller debate. There's a case that was used as an example of Nazi laws. In that case, a German woman informed on her husband for criticizing Hitler, which was a crime against Nazi law. And because because she had a boyfriend allegedly, and then she now, and knowing that the the Nazi law says that you cannot criticize Hitler, so they will now, the man was now imprisoned and then later on sent to the front to die. But unluckily for her, he did not die. God being his savior. And after the war, the court convicted the wife of doing what was perfectly legitimate under the Nazi laws. They convicted the wife on the grounds that the Nazi law itself was contrary to sound conscience and sense of justice of all decent human beings. Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree.
Why do you agree?
Because the Nazi law is basically just there, but it prevents, like, should I call it freedom of expression? And so that is contrary to all the natural justice.
Mm. So at the time that when you do something, are you not supposed to obey the law?
If you are.
So can you pick and choose the laws you want to obey? I'm just
No, you
giving
can't.
you another side to this
Yeah.
because these arguments. Can anyone tell me how long do we still have in the class? My different time zones are confusing me.
We still have 38 minutes.
Okay. Okay. You say it's fine. And the positivists like Hart argue that the laws are valid at the time. Although the laws were valid at that time, they are too immoral to be obeyed. Okay. Well, natural lawyers, the people like Fuller arguing that the laws were not even valid in the first place due to the extreme injustice. So which side of the coin do you fall on? I'm still talking to Shem.
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know you were still asking me.
Didn't you hear what I asked now? You didn't ask, you didn't answer, yeah, you didn't hear the question again.
No, I did hear the question.
Then
It's
respond.
just,
I'm saying Shem. Yeah, I mentioned your name, so answer the question.
well, yeah, I'm thinking because I don't know. It depends. You could say that it applies only during the period where the laws were created or applied for, but that doesn't change the fact that, like, from our own perspective, rights are still rights, regardless of when they were made or applied.
Okay. So another part of the hard debating debate is the issue of homosexuality, and that became a very big issue in the UK in the mid 20th century. The debate about decriminalizing, because homosexuality was a criminal offense. That's why the reason why we have homosexuality as a criminal offense in Nigeria is because it came from the colonial uh, rule of the United Kingdom. Now, you would find also that it's very interesting that homosexuality, that sexual relationship between men is criminalized. But do you know that the same relationship between women are not criminalized? Why should it be so? The reason for that is historic quirk that when nobody could say to Queen Victoria, who was the monarch at the time, that women engage in such acts, because they dare not say that to Great Mama, it was never enshrined in law. So there you go. You learned something today, I hope. Um, so decriminalizing this homosexuality became a debate highlighting the conflict between individual liberty and public morality. That whole debate between individual morality, liberty, and public morality. So Devlin is saying that law had a duty to enforce a common public morality as the cement of society, while Hart saying law has no business to enforce private moral values. Okay, all you're doing is infringing on individual liberty. So, who here would argue that homosexuality is reprehensible and disgusting and therefore should be illegal? And who would argue that everybody should mind their own business if adults are doing things in private? Isaac Timitokwe, what's your view? Jenny Fuja.
Hi, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, is it my personal opinion or like what I think as a law student?
Is that so? Do you have several different personalities inhabiting your body? Because I don't understand that
I
response.
mean, as an individual, my personal opinion would be influenced by, personal values, religious beliefs, morals, and all that. But then
Which
as a
is
you have taught us to be objective.
okay. So
And to
so
now,
so my jurisprudence class is an age of enlightenment to make you more to think more objectively than your instincts. Okay, tell me your instincts first, and then let's look at it from both sides. What is your instinct on this matter? Very quickly, please.
okay, my sense of this matter is I don't even know.
You're afraid to say in case your classmates come and fight you, because you don't know
I'm not free.
which of them are also engaging in these things, have you? Well,
I
it's
don't
not,
know.
eh?
I don't know what my instinct is. I don't think I'm sure.
You're not sure of what you know at year five.
I'm on
Year
the
five.
wall,
Year
honestly.
five. You that Ajeni Fuja in a few months you'll be in law school. You somebody's life will be in your hands by another year or two. You don't know where you are at your age. Don't talk rubbish. Oh. Don't embarrass yourself. It's never done. Hmm? Home PC. Home PC that don't have a real name, but think they're a computer or something. Home PC, are you in this class? Hmm? Home PC, what's your view? You still have that same iPhone people that don't know that they ought to have a proper name registered and not the device. Okay, what about Miracle? Miracle Nwogu. Are you part of us? Miracle. Why am I mentioning so many names and nobody's answering? Miracle Mogu. Wow. So Miracle does not exist. I've mentioned like 3 names and none of them answered. Okay. Israel Omitogun. Are you a part of this class?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What's your view? Very quickly.
Okay, yeah. I think homosexuality should be decriminalized.
Okay.
And yeah, so
So this law
like
against gay marriage, you are completely against it.
yeah, yes, like
Why are you
no,
against it?
no, I mean the law against like gay marriage can be like approached in another way rather than criminal laws. For example, the Marriage Act should not like allow same-sex
Sorry, I
marriage.
don't understand. Law against gay marriage can do what?
Like it should not be criminalized. Do you get? So it should like it should
We
not
should allow gay marriage. Your view is that we should
no
allow gay marriage.
no like the Marriage Act, for instance, should not allow gay marriage, should not give like state recognition to it.
The Marriage
Do you
Act does
get?
not give permission for gay marriage now. There's a law saying criminalizing that's actively criminalizing gay marriage. Should that law exist is my question to you.
Okay, and my response is that it should not exist. It should not be criminalized.
So both men and women can marry as they wish, as in like say South Africa. Is that your view?
No, no, no. Since the Marriage Act doesn't allow it, so they can't like obviously be like recognized. You get? So
I
it
don't
will just
understand
be
what you mean.
private.
I'm saying, okay, we have a law in Nigeria against gay marriage. Yes or no?
Yes,
Or you
we
don't know?
we do.
The law is against gay marriage. I'm saying that should we now repeal that law and then put in a law saying that gay marriage is acceptable? Simple. Yes or no? What's your view?
Yeah. Sorry. Let me ask you, the law in Nigeria that is against gay marriage, like, does it make it a criminal act or?
Of course, it's a criminal act. It's criminalized. You go to jail
Okay,
if you do gay marriage.
so yeah,
I'm surprised. Look, I'm surprised that you guys, you did criminal law. You're not aware of all of these things. I'm a bit embarrassed for you, year five student. Let me hear from Ridwan Ajiboye, I
Good
think.
morning, sir. Oh,
Ajibola, yeah.
good morning,
Hey,
sir. Please, this
good
is
morning,
Miracle.
sir.
My phone was hanging us at the time.
Okay, don't worry. We'll move past your miracle. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ridwan.
Okay, hi, good morning, sir. So I feel like it should not be criminalized because now, I mean, I guess the law was enacted in 2015, and there have not been any, or I say, any
Prosecution.
enforcement of it.
Yeah.
So what it
No,
just does is
have you not
open.
seen newspapers where they say police went to scatter gay marriage people in Kano or whatever? There have been talk in the newspaper. I just don't know of any actual criminal prosecution in
Exactly.
courts.
That's the point. Apart from the fact that I feel like people should be allowed to do what they want. That's on the right way. I feel like
So
the
you're,
I am
you're,
the
you're,
not
a, you're a
the
libertarian. People should be allowed to do what they want.
yes,
So long as you don't
yes,
harm
I am.
anybody. Okay.
Sir?
Joshua Milabi. Okay, well, go ahead.
So I feel like the fact that the law has been enacted has kind of opened the people of that community to some sort of ritual. We have instances where these people get molested and they're not actually brave enough to like to
Okay,
how
okay,
will I say, to enforce their
okay, okay. Let's move on.
you get yeah.
Yeah, very quickly, Tourist Jesu, Laura.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Good
So
morning.
personally, I think everybody should mind their business. Citing John Stuart Mill, two consensual adults, what they are doing, it doesn't harm society. And I'm going to give two realistic a realistic example. So
Very quickly, please.
recently, We have the case of Onchaya, and then we have the case of a guy, I can't remember his name, who was killed in Port Harcourt just for being gay.
Yeah.
He didn't harm anybody. He didn't cause
Yeah.
pain to anybody. And
Yeah.
then there we have two men who raped a child. We have pedophiles walking free, and nobody's doing anything. Like, this is harmful to the society. That girl was in pain. We have pedophiles walking free. We have children who have been abused, molested, raped, and nobody's saying anything about it.
Okay.
Pedophiles are working free. Like, rape is actually harmful to the society.
Okay.
But for somebody being gay, killing the person, like, I think everybody should mind their business.
Okay.
Everybody should mind their business, and we should focus on the actions that are actually harmful to the society, like rape, pedophilia, and abuse. So yeah,
Okay.
that's my own
Thank you
opinion.
for your comments. Okay. Now, what about euthanasia? You know, there are laws against committing suicide. Are you aware of that? Should that be illegal? Should that be is that legitimate? A law against suicide. That is, you're not allowed to commit suicide. Okay, let's come to Miracle. Since Miracle is now a miracle worker, let's hear from her. Miracle,
Good morning,
good morning.
sir.
Yeah.
So regarding euthanasia, yes, I believe people
I didn't talk about
should be
euthanasia. I was talking about the euthanasia is different from suicide, though.
okay.
There's a
You
law
want
against
I
committing suicide. So if you commit suicide and you fail and they catch you, you're going to jail.
yeah,
Voila, jam, voila. So,
I think it's a very funny law because the entire point of being here, I mean, if you don't want to be here anymore, it's your life. You're the person who you
mhm.
just make that decision and you're not taking anybody with you. It's not like murder where you're depriving
Yeah.
someone else of their life. And I feel like it's a way of the states trying to declare ownership of a person's life above their own agency. And I
Hmm.
think it's ridiculous
Okay.
because at the end of
Okay. Okay. Let me
at,
rephrase it. The guy goes to a five-story building to go and jump out to kill himself, lands on somebody, kills that person, but he's alive.
okay, thank you very much for that rephrasing. However, you'd agree with me that that's something that first off is not planned for. So you know we talk about crime, we talk about actors reals and mens rea, how you have to have the intent or the motive to want to kill someone. So somebody who wants to take their life by jumping from a three-story building and mistakenly landing on someone else is kind of like maybe someone taking a gun and not knowing that this gun is not unloaded or this gun is loaded and they just fire and it mistakenly hits
So
someone.
why
I
you
think
feel?
even
Uh-huh.
the person who falls on a person has less guilty mind than that person who took a loaded gun, because when you take a loaded gun or when you take a gun, you should
Okay.
always consider that little possibility that this could
Uh-huh.
be loaded and this is harmful.
So the person trying to commit suicide that recklessly lands on somebody's head and kills them should be allowed to go scot-free. Is that your
No,
view?
I think that's more of negligence or would I say recklessness, and that's
Eh,
not something that they planned for. So since they don't have that guilty mind, as much as maybe they won't go free, there's going to be a lessening of the sentence. They can't be sentenced
okay.
as somebody who committed murder,
Okay.
in
Let's
my
move on.
opinion.
I agree. Okay. I talk about homosexuality. Euthanasia is and the right to die is a very big debate in modern times. And should we legalize voluntary euthanasia? I mean that people have a right to kill themselves. They have to sit with a doctor where injects the person with this particular drug. The problem about that is that, yeah, you want to say your own individual agency, but what about when euthanasia driven by family, where they are whispering to the old person, oh, you are in so much pain. You deserve to have a painless existence. Go and die. They are teaching them and they are encouraging them because those people have property that they want to quickly inherit. They don't want to wait. They don't want to wait
Okay.
for the property. So that could be issues. So if somebody wants to end their own suffering, should they be penalized for this? Some people go to, I think Switzerland has rules that allows this, and people go there,
Yeah.
travel there, and what have you. Now, slavery. There are laws that are opposing slavery, and they were legally
Sorry,
valid
sir,
at that time.
am I to take every one of
No, no, no,
them
no, 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 no.
or
I've ended with you. Move on. I'm now back to class.
okay?
Otherwise, we won't finish our work, and we don't have that much time. So historically, laws opposing slavery were legally valid according to the criteria of that time, but now we all universally condemn it as profoundly immoral and unjust. So this is the time where the law failed to align with fundamental morality, fundamental legal moral principles of human dignity and equality. Okay, I mentioned the Nazi law. That's the case was to also consider. Okay, so when law is divorced from morality, and it means that basically the legal system uh, is is replaced by an arbitrary dictator that's just doing what he or she wants. Okay, look at Nigerian cases like Onoha Kalu against the state and others concerning customary law that's looking at the integration of morality and ethics into judicial uh, decision making, fear of God, and what have you. So for the Nazi Germany case, that separation of law and morality, look at Gustav Radbruch's formula. Gustav Radbruch's formula. After World War II, Radbruch proposed that positivity, separation of law and morality, can become unbearable when the law is so unjust that it's not even considered to be law. So look at what Radbruch says about it. The will of the dictator, the Nazi legal system eventually just became an instrument of the state, prioritizing the will of a ruling party over any moral or legal principles. And I mentioned before what the Hertzfuller debate says about the Nazi era. In Nigeria, they're talking about integration of law, morality, and maybe even tradition. And judicial decisions and religious morality. You see, Nigerian courts will talk about administering justice with the fear of God. Administering justice with the fear of God, in quotes, fear of God, in quotes. This reflects the view that moral principles are an integral part of the justice system. In customary law, some cases have recognized the validity of customary law, such as oath taking before traditional shrines, as a valid form of oath taking in the legal system, according to Olanimu Ajayi. Positivism was natural law. We discussed that at length, that debate between law as it is and what law ought to be. Okay. So in the case where Onuakalu against the state, where the state affirms the death penalty, despite it raising questions of morality, what do we now say? How do we approach something like that? Okay. I'm sure I don't know whether I know I spoke about Lon Fuller and his morality of the law, and that there are 8 principles for the inner morality of the law. This inner morality of law is essential for a legal system to be considered valid and effective. So if we apply these principles and they don't work, they're not there, then the law is invalid and ineffective. And these 8 principles um, show that the law has a moral core necessary for human cooperation. If it doesn't have that inner core of the 8 principles, then it is not. So the 8 principles, again, generality. Laws must exist as general rules, not arbitrary and ad hoc decisions. Publicity, the law must be made public and available so people actually know what the law is actually saying. For instance, if I arrest you and now say, the people who have been, police have been picking up people for a long, long time over wandering. I don't think there's any particular statute talking about wandering. But they use it to make money by carrying people to the police station to extort money from them. Prospectivity. The law must apply to future conduct, not punish past actions which were legal at the time. So the law must not be non-retroactive. Look at the case of where under the Buhari military government, the drug smugglers were executed, even though at the time they did their smuggling, it was not there was no law, there was no death penalty involved. That's perfectly, that's we considered unjust. Clarity: laws must be written and expressed in a way that is understandable to people who must follow them. So if I design the law now and I write it in Latin, and nobody speaks Latin, nobody reads Latin, it will not qualify to be a law. Consistency: law must be consistent. It should not contradict one another. A person should not be obliged by one law to do something that another law will prohibit. So all the law must flow in the direction of consistency. What about practicability? The law must be possible for students, must be practicable. Students must be capable. Citizens must be students. Citizens must be capable of obeying the law. Okay, the law must not demand the impossible. Stability: law must be relatively stable and not change constantly. So if today you have this law and tomorrow another law, the day after another law, then it will not be a law, because the stability is what allows individuals to plan their lives based on the law. What about congruence? There must be congruence between the rule as announced and the rule as applied. That means officials must enforce the laws as written, as it's written. Okay. Are we good? Are we good?
Yes, sir.
So everything we've
Yes, sir.
said makes sense. Everybody's a winner. Okay. Can you, is there any case that you want to look at? There's the case, isn't there the case of the enforcement of, I want someone to tell us about the enforcement, what happens to law after a coup. Is that not part of our work? After a state has been overthrown, what happens to the law? Does the law still exist, or has the law gone? I think that's part of our syllabus, isn't it? Because I'm telling you, most of these things I'm doing from my head. I have no access to my material, to my laptop. No, nobody's read any of this. No, nobody, no one.
Hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. So, I can remember there's a case of Lakomi and E.G. Western,
Someone
where
that's this read it. Go ahead, Lakomi. Lakomi
so
says, what does Lakomi says? Let's see.
so where the court was considering whether the constitution is still effective after the coup and the decree that came afterwards. So the court actually struggled to agree that the constitution is still effective, and only the parts that have been suspended by decree are no more effective.
Okay. That's, at least you have your Jude notes in front of you. Am I wrong?
I have the table. I have opened it as well.
You also read it up. Okay, that's good. Okay. I was talking about that content, how Nigerian law treats the moral content of Nigerian law. Okay. So where the view that law relates exclusively to our external conduct, while morality is inner motivation. It's not always the case in terms of, because modern legal systems cannot really isolate law and morality into different compartments and watertight. There can be a bit of a flow between this. The modern state has an element of this, and I think I've been speaking about this throughout the lecture. So when you look at the concept of equity, doctrines of equity came up out of the necessity of an appeal to the court of conscience. So the equity came to where law did not do justice, when the court of equity, the conscience of the chancellor, who was basically a keeper of the king's conscience. You go to the court of equity to basically go and seek redress. So if the rigid formalism of the common law uh, would be especially harmful, you go to equity. So all these maxims have turned up because of that. Equity will not suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. He who seeks equity will do equity. I'm sure you remember all of this, don't you? He who comes into equity will come with clean hands. Delay defeats equity. Equality is equity. Equity looks to the intent rather than to the form. Equity looks on that as done which ought to be done. Have we all read all of this? I'm sure we're all aware of this, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
What about the law of contract? Law of contract, all these maxims, nudum pactum, absence of obligation in the absence of consideration. There must be consideration. Concessus addendum, the reality of consent. If you secure a contract under duress, I go to you now to sign a land lease, transferring your house to me at gunpoint. That contract or that lease is secured under duress and therefore invalid. Force majeure, an act of God. These are things that bring in this element of a bit of morality. Or by sale of goods. Caveat emptor. Caveat emptor. More, trying to sell fake goods and what have you. Or by insurance law. The contract umbere me fide. Contract insurance contracts are contracts of what utmost good faith. So that's contract says that you have a duty or to disclose all material facts that may influence the decision of the other party. Both the assured and the insured must disclose all material facts under the concept under umbreme fide, utmost good faith. And if you consider material fact, the policy becomes void. Okay. Law of agency, we say we transfer, shift mere authority to fiduciary obligations to another party so that someone representing you can bind you. Law of property, the Roman conception of ownership, right to own, use, and destroy, is now being changed and modified in sense of duties of property, duties of ownership, and duties of what you ought to do. Criminal law, actus non facere reum mens sit rea. You have combined action and mens rea. You must have a guilty mind. Mere overt acts do not constitute an offense unless accompanied by a guilty mind. Look at section 24 of the Criminal Code. Quid facie alium facis per se. He who procures an agent to commit an offense is deemed to have committed the offense himself. Section 7 of the Criminal Code. Offenses against morality enshrined in Criminal Code. We have been discussing this all along. Unnatural offense. That's an offense against the order of nature. Look at the emotionalism in these things. Although I am not, I don't, there's homosexuality, there's bestiality. Bestiality, and nobody can try to justify bestiality, even though you may say, well, homosexuality is a personal thing. If a man found on top of a goat, I think people will be very upset. Section 214 to 233 Criminal Code. Customary law and the validity of native law and custom repugnancy. The repugnancy test, you can read that up. It's all very, very clear. Our societies in one time, twins were being killed. Nowadays, nobody would suggest that that is a proper way of doing things. where a woman became a widow because her husband died young. She has to prove her innocence by drinking the water washed off his dead body. That's completely intolerable, and that's what we see. And so customary law, if it's repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience, will not stand. It will not stand. It cannot stand. Okay. The same British people that did all of this in their own time, they had um, they had customs of how to deal with witches, where they threw the witch into a pond, and if she sank and drowned, she was innocent. But if she floated to the top, she was guilty, and they set her on fire. I mean, society has been crazy for a long time. There's nothing new. Administrative law includes concepts of natural justice, nemo judex in causa sua. I don't know what that means. You guys are the ones who do Latin, and I've forgotten all my own Latin. Okay. Oh, I love thoughts. Donoghue and Stevenson, or Donoghue and Stevenson, as you call it, and the law of thoughts. Duty of care. Duty of care. You can see that expansion of how the law is not strictly in boxes. What about the law of evidence and procedure? Innocent until proven guilty. Innocent until what? Proven guilty. These are core issues that we must take into consideration. Also, the fact in evidence, you can come and give character evidence. But when you give character evidence, they intend to rebut you and tell the truth about you. Okay. What about constitutional law, where we are separating powers, concept of separation of powers to check tyranny. What about this whole issue of fundamental human rights? So all the things that we are talking about, if it breaches fundamental human rights, it will be regarded as illegitimate. Okay. So since the American Constitution came into being, most modern constitutions, including our 1999 Constitution, have enshrined the idea of natural rights and could be subject to legal guarantees. Right to life. Right to life. All the different rights that you can find there. So many different rights. And now we're even talking about third and fourth generation rights. Right to food. Should there be a right to food? Should I have a right to sit at home, do nothing, not work, and then later on be eating food? International law has been very helpful in this because, as you know, the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights 1948 was a reaction to the revulsion against the widespread violation of human rights that occurred during World War II. If you look at the Nazi way of treating human life, they turned human life into nothing. The Japanese too were famous for experimenting and killing people recklessly. Look at the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, 1966, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination, Racial Discrimination, 1966, Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties, 1969. All these are bringing some kind of elements that are almost morality of some sort. Okay? The law does not necessarily set out to legislate against sin because there are no uniform moral standards. But at the same time, the law will not ignore abuse. Okay? And these moral norms, whether you like it or not, add greatly to our quality of life. And it allows society to bond together in common views of charity, kindness, and helping one another. You have a right to help. Is there a right to help? So a country like Nigeria, which says secular on paper, at least in the constitution, but then has so much religious issues and religious hostility and killings. How do we reconcile it? So secularism on the constitution is not neutrality. It's actually about religious neutrality. If we apply that, it means that there should be nobody going to Jerusalem or Hajj, at least not funded by government. The government has no business with that. It's a private act, and people should be allowed to fund it. What government can do is to provide consular services and help them organize themselves to visit their holy land as they wish. But it has nothing to do with government. But what we see in reality is that government um, has intervened, and government has been putting money into it. And even when states have no money, they always have find money for things like this. They have no roads, they don't have healthcare, they don't have clean water, but they have money for religion. Not really how society is meant to be really. So we're a multi-ethnic society, multicultural society, multi-religious society. Although what you hear is Christianity, Islam, as if they're the only two ones. There are many other religions, and they don't seem to be causing more. They don't seem to cause as much trouble as the two big ones in terms of the chaos we see. Okay. So I've already spoken in the past about um, how, although the penal code was influenced by Islamic inspiration and criminal code operates in the South, we know that um, the Sharia law more recently introduced since I think the Zamfara state government under um, has changed and politicized religion to now even remove it to now become a very difficult and divisive thing to do. Okay. Do you have any questions? Everybody's silent. Have I been talking to myself for the last hour? Mary, go ahead.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, yes.
Sir, you were mentioned talking about witchcraft earlier. If it was criminalized under our law,
Yeah.
and it came to a conclusion that it wasn't. But by virtue of Section 210 of the Criminal Code,
No, I'm not saying. Well, I'm saying that. Well, okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
yes, it provides that anybody that presents themselves to be a witch
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
guilty of an offense.
Yeah. How many witches have you seen in court?
And it's just not enforced
That's what I was.
like
That's what I
many
was
of our
referring
other
to.
laws.
So if a law is not enforced, is it a law?
Okay.
Hmm?
Fair enough, sir.
Do you get my argument?
Yes, sir.
So I also mentioned the I think it's I can't remember whether it's Enugu State that has a law against something, but something about ritualized money making. You see that young people are being enticed wrongly and in an evil to an evil thing, and they're trying to stamp it out, and that's actually quite good. Okay, Fatia Yusuf.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sam, you mentioned earlier when you were stating the 8 principles, consistency. So my question, and when you were explaining consistency, you mentioned that the laws should be quite similar
That's
and
just it's
say the same
Lon
thing or
Fuller's inner morality
similar
of the
things.
law. It's not my policy. It's just it's Lon
Oh,
Fuller.
definitely. Yes, definitely. So my question with respect to consistency is how then do we bring about, or how then do we align this with the use of words such as notwithstanding the provisions of a particular law, or when a provision of a law states something like subject to this law? Because from my understanding of those, it means that there are two contrary provisions, but one is
It's not
saying that
control.
okay, for
Notwithstanding, there will be exceptions to rules now. There's always been exceptions to rules. That has nothing to do with the overall consistency of the law itself. I mean, you can have exceptions. For instance, if you should use helmets. I'm just giving an example. I'm not sure that's in the law. But use the helmet when riding motorcycle. But if you're found riding motorcycle because you are running away for your life or something, there are some exceptions to most even traffic laws. If, for instance, you're trying to escape with your life, I don't think you don't get uh, you don't get prosecuted for sometimes breaching the rules. So I don't think that doesn't have anything to do with the overall consistency of law. I don't agree with that. David Suberu, please.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Please, so I wanted to ask why, when you were speaking on prostitution,
Okay.
you spoke about it like it was a public problem. Let me explain. So when you spoke about homosexuality, you spoke about it in a private sphere, yeah, and I understand why that is because it's something that people do indoor. But can you explain why prostitution is not considered the same way, and also
The same way as what?
why it's not considered like a private?
How can it can't be private because the people are hanging on the street corners and looking for customers now.
Okay,
And
so
women complain, for instance, that when prostitutes move to their area, normal women that are not involved engaged in prostitution will find men harassing them. That how much is it? How much is it? How would you feel about that if you're a woman?
all
It's
right.
a
So
horrible thing. Yeah.
so the problem with prostitution then is the public indecency
Public nuisance.
and public nuisance it causes.
But even when they do it in their private house, where they have a house of prostitution, where men visit them, it's still
Mhm.
illegal, isn't it? In many countries.
Yes, it's
Some
still
countries
illegal.
have legalized prostitution, but in a
Okay.
limited manner. They legalize it for the women that the women can do it and nothing will happen. But the men who come and visit them can be prosecuted, and the people who live off their earnings, the pimps, can be prosecuted. That's their way
Okay.
of controlling it, so that
Okay.
the victim is not persecuted twice. That's the way the state is.
So I want to ask, what happens in situations where, because I don't think, yes, there are situations where people are victims in prostitution, like when they were trafficked or forced into it, all of that part of prostitution to be illegal. But when someone chooses to legally, to like, or independently be a prostitute on their own, how does that
Yeah, I think
affect?
I've answered this question before. I said, how do you know who has chosen to be a prostitute and who hasn't, who has been forced, or who was abused as a child and therefore ruined
Okay, so it's just seen illegal in a way to cover everything at the end of the day.
yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
Very
No
quickly, because I think we are run out of time, and this is the last class, I think. If I don't get, I think I'll send a message to I think Dr. Caribbean White, who is next. Either she comes in the next class or the class after next. Okay. Subomi Nuga. Okay, Esther Ojo was hands up was first. Very quickly, please. Yeah,
Yes,
because
sir.
yeah.
Esther speaking. So, with regards to witchcraft, where you mentioned that just because there has been no punishment, for people who have posed to do, something related to witchcraft. So, my question is, we talked about the breach of promise to marry during the last class, and we all know that judicial precedents are also sources of law. And there was a case of this Eziana and Atta, where the person that breached the promise to marry, damages was awarded to the other party. So are we now saying that just because there is no law, stating that you cannot renege on your promise to marry, then that is not law in itself?
What do you mean there's no law? Some countries have even laws
No, I'm talking
against
about
it.
in Nigeria, for example. In Nigeria, there is no particular
And there's no
provision.
particular law, but so what do you want to do about that? Do you want us to create a law saying that for breach of promise to marry? Is it your argument that we should have a law?
Maybe
Because
it is because the same way
the court may
we've
look
been
at it
discussing.
differently. Look, if you go before the court may say a man maybe unjustly enriched himself on a woman, promised her marriage and extorted money from her as a result. So there are ways that the court may look at a particular scenario, but whether there should be a general law against breach of promise to marry, I think is open to question.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I think I sent even a message to your class rep who did not mention anything. The people that were asked to do things, none of this were mentioned. In terms of
Yeah, I'm one of them, and that's why I've been trying to make sure that I said something in this class.
yeah, okay, pretending to say something. Okay, no wonder. It is well. God bless. Okay, if there are no other questions, I think people have even left the class. Can you imagine? Left their teacher in class. I wish you well. Have a nice day, and I think I've concluded now with you guys. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.